so far, so it's going to be great to see how this kind of continues. But yeah, adaptation is like one of the biggest things for a lot of these teams already, but I think they're doing a great job of adapting with that so far. We'll just have to see how that progresses and evolves.
Well, here we go, going into our second match of the day, and we'll see how things go down here, as Spastic Crabs will be initially attacking off the get-go, and Floaters Unite on the defense. And I guess for a lot of our newer viewers out there, maybe you can take a second here to explain what's going to be going on, what's going to be on the screen. Yeah,
so right now you are seeing essentially a format a lot of people are familiar with. Compare it to something like Overwatch, where you have a payload, you've got to get the payload from one side of the map to the other. And the way that players fight in this is essentially they're navigating around in a zero-gravity environment where they essentially use their hands and the guns and tools at their disposal to kill the other team and push that payload
They actually
forward.
use their hands.
Oh yeah,
not
they're
like a mouse and
hands.
keyboard. This is actually VR. This is with Oculus headsets. So
yeah, exactly. So you basically use your hands to grab onto a surface or a teammate, as we're seeing right there from Swingly, and you can throw off of both objects and both stationary objects and your teammates, and use that to gain momentum and speed. Now, if you do that off of a static object, you'll only move so far, but if you use a teammate that's already traveling at a certain speed, you gain the additional speed from them. So that's how you can see a lot of these players when they're stacking up with two people to go really, really fast. And we see it a lot in Echo Arena. We see it to some extent in Echo Combat. Echo Combat, obviously, you need to use your hands for your grenades, your guns, your tacticals, so there's a much more kind of I'd say more of a stationary element of it, but you then look at how teams like Blast have played in the last round, where it is very, very super fast and aggressive, and they use stacking to their advantage in almost every situation, because when you're flying around in zero gravity and you can get a lot of speed.
Oh my God, speaking of
the
speed.
hold! He's going to delay it long enough! Do we have the EU leverage? Is that what we're starting to see?
Leverage?
EU leverage.
Maybe. I mean, definitely. There's a chance for it there. The thing is, we're not really seeing any meteors. Actually, we have one now for Drago. Initially, there was a Hackbuster as well taking one up. It was basically around the Pulsars and the Novas, but they seem to switch things up. There was a Comet in there as well.
Yeah, and so just to clarify with those guns as well, so the four guns that we're referring to there, you can kind of see the little icon right next to the player's number, which essentially indicates they're using one of four guns. Now you have the sniper, you have the grenade launcher, which is, the sniper's called the Comet, which is the little kind of, I don't know if anyone's using it. Jonas right now is using the Comet, which is that little reticle. You've got the Nova, which is the shotgun, which is the kind of X, which you can see next to Swingly. You have the Meteor, which is essentially the grenade launcher. You can see just being fired there by Drago Boss. Basically does a lot of splash damage. Great for teams that are grouping up, as we're seeing some here. Although it does lose out in a lot of very close range fights, as we kind of see a follow-up from Drago losing a life there. And then lastly, we have the Pulsar, which is the machine gun, the kind of the standard in every FPS title. So teams have that range of weapons at their disposal in various different loadouts. Obviously, there's 4 players per team, meaning that the composition of those guns has a big impact on the team playstyle. What we're seeing right now from both teams seems to be quite of a mixed bag. We are actually seeing two Novas and 2 Meteors coming out of Floaters. However, not necessarily working out particularly well for them. 4 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock for this last push here from Spastic Crabs. We'll have to see if Floaters can do anything. They're going to be taking a lot of damage, but Zuka going down very early on. And yeah, Spastic Crabs are doing a great job in this round so far.
Yeah, surprisingly, they've got a lot more distance I think maybe we expected. I mean, they're into the third and final phase here. Obviously, you have that ramp to work around. Things didn't look too great for them off the get-go, though, because they were, I don't know, they were getting aggressive in like weird situations, just sending off one player by himself, but we already can see that it's been working out for them in the end of things. 4 minutes left to go, a massive amount of time, as phase 2 really didn't provide any sort of stopping power for Floaters Unite. And the payload's still moving, by the way. It's actually about to get up the ramp.
Oh.
Meantime, Spastic Crabs have lost out on 2 players, so they're immediately going to have to back off, giving up that payload.
Yeah, so you can see in the minimap on the bottom right the kills when these are coming in. Floaters, I think their positioning has been a bit kind of all over the place. They'll have some time to regroup now, though, so we'll have to question whether or not this is going to stay like that. But yeah, Spastic Crabs are doing a great job of capitalizing when the Floaters have a player out of position. And Floaters are now trying to move up. They've got a 2-man stack on the far left-hand side, you can see. Starting to look to get aggressive. It looks like they're going for a little bit of an interesting flank here, but Spastic Crabs are doing the exact same. This looks like, however, Floaters taking the initiative are going to get enough damage on to take 2 members out very quickly, which is going to leave them in a 4 versus 2 with the remaining members of Spastic Crabs.
I feel like Floaters finally got the attack off they wanted to on the defense.
Yeah, it's kind of that aggressive defense that you want to take, and I actually really like it. I think it's a great way of playing it. We see it a lot coming out of Blur, so it's great to see now kind of other teams starting to adopt that more.
shots hitting here out of Jonas. Doing some decent damage. Actually, the rest of the players out of Floaters can actually capitalize off the damage being done. Number 69, Jock's gonna most likely go down. However, they've been able to turn around 2 kills themselves.
So he's going to be able to contest the point here, but you do have a member of Floaters that is sat there with a Meteor, so he is in a great position to do some damage without really risking himself.
Little detonator thrown in. Doesn't seem to have connected. And you can see Jonas actually pushing up off the actual payload. Trying to look for an angle, looking for a shot onto a player who is defending.
Oh, they're going to get a kill.
And they got one. They're looking for 2. Hackbuster low, Batsuga low, Voodoo going to fall down. And I feel like we actually might see Spastic Crabs finish this one off. Jock's the only one to fall on their side. The payload's going to continue to push here. There's only 1 player left to stall. He's been cleaned up.
Yeah.
With a 3-man squad pushing back through. It comes all in the hands of Trogdor, and to somehow hold on is another player respawning back in as well. Number 69's Voodoo. They have to get directly on top of his payload to halt its progress, but they haven't even been able to do that. And that will be Spastic Crabs with a fantastic start.
Yeah,
Feel
great.
worried about your prediction now?
Probably. I mean, that was a great start from Spastic Crabs. I mean, coming back to the whole adaptation thing, Floaters usually kind of had either a player out of position or they didn't necessarily pull off the stunt they were looking to do as well as they, as frequently and as consistently as they could have. I mean, we saw it work perfectly at one point, like in the middle towards that last one where they had 2 members split. They then they drew a fight in with 2 of the members from Spastic Crabs, and then they basically did a pincer maneuver. The other 2 players came round. But yeah, that was the only time, though. Yeah. That was the only time that successfully worked in that entire round.
It's like the only time they seem to have got off a coordinated attack.
And the reason why is because they had all the time in the world to prepare. They were literally sat in their spawn like, okay, we've got plenty of time before they come back. We just had a fortunate team fight where we wiped them. Let's set up in the way we want to set up. But apart from that, they always seem to have a player or 2 players out of position, and Spastic Crabs were just kind of like stumbling into these free kills and just finding more and more and more, and that just kind of kept going on all the way through to that third point.
What I'm understanding is you're saying that Spastic Crabs, even though they finished the round, it's not like they won the round. It was more of mess ups.
I feel like Floaters kind of walked into a lot of deaths face first. Like they basically just kind of found themselves in positions where they were getting picked out where they shouldn't really have been able to get picked off. And then, but the thing is, Spastic Crabs did a great job of mopping those up. They punished on those mistakes, which is something you also need to do, because there are a lot of positions as well, with these being the top teams, where you are actually so surprised that they've made that mistake that you don't actually punish it, because you're like, wait, why are you here? And like, there's a moment of like, wait, I need to kill you. You're like, you're out of position. I can take advantage of this. So you also have to be able to do that as well. But they were able to successfully do that, and they did obviously win that first point as a result. So we're going to have to see what Floaters try and pull off here. Looks like they're going to go for a quite a slow start. Not too aggressive, which is drastically different from what they were trying in the last round. So we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out. But
still have a Pulsar picked up here and a Chalk Dorm.
Yeah, so build-wise,
Jock as well.
Both teams are pretty kind of varied in their loadouts. We've got Pulsar, Meteor, Nova on Floaters, and we've got Meteor, Nova, Comet, and Pulsar. So complete range.
I mean, yeah, the reason I'm bringing this up is if you guys didn't watch the last match, it was just basically Novas and Meteors, shotgun and rocket launchers the entire time.
Yep.
But those are like, and I don't mean it in any, you know, rude way to these 2 teams, but that was like the pinnacle of EU. The top 2 teams 100%.
Yeah, I think that when you're looking, and I would argue that the one, and there's kind of a separate point on that, is that both these teams are very familiar, like both Gravity and Blurst are very familiar with playing against each other. Oh, I think it was a missed detonator and going on their side, unfortunately. So they do spot the 2 members of Spastic Crabs, but not able to punish on it. However, they are able to follow up with enough damage to cancel that out. However, Spastic Crabs are pushing up relatively uncontested here.
Yeah, Spastic Crabs give him a lot of leeway. You can see some meteors being shot off. By the way, I just want to bring it up for you guys at home. This is not the only game we're going to be having today.
Yes.
It won't just be Echo Combat. We'll be moving over to Space Junkies with Blue and Banks after we do finish off this tournament for EU. And if you're unfamiliar, Space Junkies, it's basically an arena FPS in 0G.
Yeah.
So think Quake, but in space.
Yes, basically.
That's the best way to explain it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so if we call this Overwatch in space, that's Quake in space.
Yep, and played VR.
Yep.
So it's not like you're playing mouse and keyboard. You're playing, you know, with the headset on, with the controllers in your hands, and you're playing like a Quake-esque arena FPS game.
Yeah, exactly. So Yeah, and obviously then tomorrow we're also going to have Echo Arena, which is kind of the...
It's more of a sports game.
Yeah, yeah.
It's in the same universe as Echo Combat. It's based around a mix of soccer or football.
Same move mechanics, yeah.
Basketball and hockey.
Yeah, basically you have a disc, 3 people either side, you've got to get the disc in the other team's goal. And then we also have Onward, which is the kind of military sim, which is the real
closest thing to explain is like Arma.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I know like publishers don't like us comparing to other games, but
I mean,
to make it, you know,
people are very familiar
to a general audience,
yeah.
you have to be able to describe like a more recognized game in the world
I mean,
of esports.
it's also just looking at like obviously the genre that these titles fill, obviously because they're in VR. It's kind of it's a very different dynamic when you actually get into play these, because the movement systems are completely different. Like
especially Onward, like you literally have to like put your hand up to your shoulder to talk on the radio, or you literally have to take out a tablet to look at the map, and there's no timer, there's no UI on the screen telling you, and you can accidentally knife yourself if you're not careful.
That's happened.
That happen. We casted it once, and we're like, what the hell just went down?
Yeah.
Speaking about what the hell's going down, you can see Floaters Knight be given a lot of room here to breathe. They've actually pushed up that southern side looking for a kill, which they did get onto Jock. And I think with the pace they're going, they should be able to finish. I think both teams will be able to complete. It's going to come down to the second go-through out of both. Oh, wow, that was a quick little double kill. Hackbuster and both going to fall.
It seems to be... Okay, so they are getting a successful defense here. Spastic again, but... Yeah, just this... Okay, this kind of comes back to the whole composition thing. I feel like, arguably, if you're running this kind of super varied comp like Spastic Crabs are running, that is the ideal composition to kind of punish these super drawn-out long fights, because you've got so much variables and flexibility of utility at your disposal in terms of the range you can engage at, like where you get consistent damage from the Nova and the Pulsar, with big spurts of damage from the Comet and the Meteor. I feel like in these long drawn-out fights, this is kind of a good loadout to have, because we're seeing with Floaters, losing 2 members, a Meteor and a Nova player, means that their 2 remaining members don't function as well by themselves as a unit of 2 as they do as a unit of 4. If you're running this kind of Meteor Nova composition, the damage they do is amplified by however many other teammates you've also got doing the same thing. So if you do a Meteor shot into one location, if you have another teammate also shooting in the same location, that is kill potential there. If you're doing it with one person, there is a long delay in between your shot and your next shot for there to be kill potential. So it's really amplified, the strength of it is amplified by your teammates. So because we're having these super long drawn out fights, as we're seeing right now, where it's basically 1v1s all over the place and trade left, right, center, it's actually working out quite well for Spastic Crabs.
Oh, Jonas can't be missing those shots, not looking at you. He's trying to defend here. The payload is still pushing. He's behind them.
He needs to get on it, though.
He's behind them, which is good. The problem is he has a Comet, and he has a player right next to him. And the player of Atsuga is immediately going to just dismantle him. And it looks like Floaters Unite will finally be able to complete here, as Dragon Boss will be the last man remaining to defend, and he should quickly be cleaned off. We know how this goes, and that will be Floaters Unite finishing with about 1:40 left.
Yeah, so Floaters are able to take it regardless of kind of these, I'd say, slightly messy fights. I feel like Floaters improved slightly from their first initial round compared to what we saw there. However, I still think that, I mean, okay, just for comparison, Spastic Crabs running a very, very varied loadout composition. Floaters running quite the standard triple or double Meteor. I think that in terms of looking at the next maps we're going to be playing, obviously this is a best of 3, not a best of 5, meaning that we're only going to see 1 Dyson, 1 Combustion, or potentially just the Dyson map depending on who wins. I feel like the loadout from Floaters is going to be much more beneficial in those maps than we are necessarily seeing here. So I feel like this could swing in Floaters' direction.
Especially on Dyson.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you saw how strong those compositions were there. I feel like the varied loadout from Spastic Crabs works on payload to some extent because how drawn out some of these fights can be. But unless they're like intentionally doing that on the capture point maps, it's going to be much harder thing to do.
But the Crabs did use the Comet. So they were willing, which is something I wanted to see on Dyson onto the King of the Hill map in our last best of 5 that we didn't have happen. But we're going to our second attacking phase. Pretty much equal time between both teams, 1:55 and 1:39. And Voodoo already gets sniped. Jonas just takes him out of the fight completely here. And now these 3 other players actually, what? Jonas gets a second with the Comet. Why are we not spectating him?
That is some big kills coming over from Jonas there.
Go to Jonas, go to Jonas.
Basically just doing damage from the back. I mean, the Comet, you shouldn't really be getting these kills on. Like, you'd argue, I mean, you shouldn't, in theory, because you should do some damage, I mean, up to 80 or 90% damage, but... Okay, seeing a stray detonator coming in.
Why are they pushing in with 2?
Yeah, I think
it's working.
Yeah, I think what happened there is, like, the detonator didn't connect, and they kind of just didn't forget, but they just kind of left those 2 players to their own devices. Unfortunately, that's going to be their downfall there, basically leaving Jonas last man alive here. Now, got Comet coming in, and he's going to be able to try and do some damage. Also, a good shot coming in initially, but not a headshot, which is what puts you in that really critical range. But doesn't matter, his teammate's going to be able to mop up those 2 kills. They do trade 1 though, which isn't great.
One thing I feel like the Pulsar could excel at, it can be really good for people who are really mobile, like your leverages.
Yeah.
Because you get so much damage off, and you don't.
Damage.
Yeah, and you don't have to like use a shotgun where if you miss, you know, it's either full damage or no damage. You know, at least with the Pulsar, you're consistently doing more damage over time.
It's kind of why the Pulsar and Nova are used as these like conversion tools, because as we talk about, because there are so many healing mechanics in the game, you've got the kind of long beams that essentially are healing up your teammates. Kind of looking at the tacticals, you've also got the insta-heal grenade.
So creepy, sorry. I was just imagining like a spider, the way it was like crawling sideways, or a crab crawling sideways.
Yeah. So, yeah, it is crabbing. It is known as crabbing, something that's very familiar, because obviously if you can grab onto something you're in 0 gravity, why not just grab onto the floor and do loads of very quick movements? It does work, but that's why you kind of have the Meteor, right? The splash damage weapon that just completely prevents that. So we're seeing a successful push now coming out of Spastic. I mean, yeah.
Successful. Didn't finish the first phase, or on the second go through, but they only had a minute.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you compare that to the Gravity Blast, where how far they got it, I'd say it's pretty similar to that game.
Yeah, I just feel it's hard to compare these teams against those.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, but I mean, the distance they were able to get the point, I'd say, is comparable. So, I mean,
how often do you see teams complete twice?
As in on the second run? Very rare. I don't think I've actually seen it happen in a competitive game.
I think we could pull it off.
Maybe?
You, me, Affenter.
Okay.
Blue.
But the thing is, if you've got a team that is that good, that can run it all the way to the end, why didn't they win the first round anyway?
That's a good point. No, actually, okay. To be fair,
yeah.
in my 2 years of casting Overwatch, there were teams who were really good at attacking and really bad at
just
defending.
Sucked at defending. Okay. All right.
Or the other way around, they're really good at defending but bad at attacking.
Yeah, but then defending it wouldn't matter. It's all about the attack then, isn't it? Because you've got to take the point all the way to the end.
Well, no, because if you're really good at defending but bad at attacking, then neither team can capture the first point.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on the team matchup, to be fair. But doesn't matter anyway. We're going to be getting back into this last final round to decide who takes the first map, which is obviously now we're in a best of 3 series, and we're not a best of 5 because this is the first lower bracket match we're going to be watching. This means a very big deal for both these teams here. So seeing a somewhat successful push from Flotus coming out initially, Batsu going very low, but is going to survive.
The thing is, they only
he's not.
Like basically one big fight to close this out. They actually have the respawn come back in, immediately hops right on top of the payload, so that will start to move. The 2 players are going to get a little bit aggressive here to look for some early damage and ideally early kills. Spastic Crabs cannot afford to lose out on one more fight or they'll be down 1-0 in the series.
Yeah, this is it. So they cannot have a player going low.
Get scared.
Yeah, or get super aggressive with 2 people. You just can't do it. And although it wasn't the first person that gets there, the second 2 people that get there are just, they basically run face first into 3 meteors. Or 2
below,
meteors.
Drago is trying to sit far back.
Well, maybe 2 meteor. Just Nova, 2 Novas as well, 2 times in the meteor.
I don't know why Drago was sitting so far back there for such a long time, but in the end, that will be Floaters Unite taking the first map. So even though both teams did complete, Floaters looked a lot better on the second attacking phase. Maybe some nerves being shaken out of their hands, out of their heads.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that it was it was a bit shaky start from them, but I think they've obviously found their comfort spot towards the end of those 2 games, or that game. And I feel like, as I was mentioning during those matches, they seem to have composition. They seem to have a composition. We haven't seen a full composition come out of Spastic Crabs yet. So it's I want to say going into these maps, the team that has a composition, especially on Dyson, is in a significantly better position than a team that's going to kind of do this very mixed bag. We're going to kind of try and have answers for everything, because because of purely the nature of Dyson as a map that's you have this big open section and then you have this very confined section, it's kind of a game of absolutes. You are either absolutely going to be playing open and you have a game plan to punish people that are playing in the closed space, or you are going to play closed and basically turtle and make sure that the only way that they can get damage on you is if they come to you.
Thing is, you're talking about compositions, and I feel like the only reason we have the Meteor Nova is because of healing. Because the only way to really get solidified kills is either have all 4 players at the same target or to burst them down in a way they can't heal it. I feel like that means that healing is maybe a little bit too strong.
It is.
You can't have the Pulsar do damage over time, basically, to kill someone. You just have to...
Exactly. Well,
have to use burst weapons.
The healing actually is currently undergoing a nerf at the moment, so there is. I think it's actually on the PTS right now, so they actually have that live, so people have been testing it. There was a potential it was going to come in before the qualifier tournaments that we had both last weekend and this weekend, but because of it's been played like this for the entire season, they didn't want to have it as a suddenly the meta just changes like the week before a big tournament. So they
Wait, you're telling me a publisher doesn't want to drop like a brand new item or brand new features to the game right before a major tournament?
I mean,
it's weird.
Yeah. In this instance,
unusual these days.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that it does mean that healing is recognized as something that is very strong in the game at the moment, which is why you see all teams running it. It's almost a de facto standard. It's either the only question is, do they give up 1 heal in exchange for like a threat scanner or like a phase shift sometimes, or even?
See, I still want to see like set compositions.
Well, phase shift
you can only have like
valuable.
1 or 2 healers max.
Yeah, maybe.
I think like heal. Yeah, across the team you have like a total of like 3 healing abilities total, whether it's ordnance or tactical. So ordnance is like your grenades.
Yeah. Tactical
is like your big ability. I would love to see like limitations on that to kind of like force people to play like a certain way or a different way.
I honestly think with the changes that are coming in now, because there was a whole thing around whether or not the Nova also gets nerfed, and people have they've kind of realized that actually it doesn't need that big of a nerf, because nerfing healing is like already doing that to some extent.
Yep.
Because I mean, Nova's big thing at the moment, why it's used so frequently, is because it can convert those kills really consistently. So when you get into those fights, it's like it's a 3-shot essentially. But if you have already got a certain amount of damage on someone, it becomes a 1 or 2 shot, which makes it a very consistent conversion tool.
And less likely to heal.
Exactly. So it's very less likely to heal. But I think with the healing nerfs that are coming in, both to the insta-heal and the kind of ongoing healing, I would be very surprised if we didn't see much more of a balanced loadout view now, because I think if you think about things like phase are naturally less strong than healing based on healing being like as good as it is now. So while we see less heals coming in, we'll start to see hopefully more of these other tacticals that are kind of on that fringe case at the moment.
Another defensive tactical.
Exactly, and as shield as well, for example. I mean, if healing is ineffective or less ineffective than it is now, shield suddenly becomes that HP sponge that you can throw out in the middle of a match. I mean, we haven't seen shield, I think, at all both last weekend. We might have seen it once last weekend. In the lower, do we? I can't remember.
I don't think we saw it last week. I've seen it like twice out of every match I've cast.
So for anyone that isn't aware, there's actually a shield in-game that you can throw out, and what it does is it creates this big, like basically piece of mesh, essentially.
A shield.
A big shield, yeah. But what it is, it's actually interactable, so you can grab onto it and hold onto it. So as we were saying before about moving around, you can actually use it and hold onto it.
But can you move it? You can't move it.
You can't move it.
I would love to see you be able to move it. Because then you could lead like a launch with a shield in the front.
Yeah.
Or you could put on top of the payload and prevent a lot of like meteor shots coming through. Obviously, like you can eventually burst it down, but it prevents damage from coming.
It's a bit like Reinhardt shield.
Basically. I guess like more like a Risa.
Yeah, yeah. So it's, I think...
I would love to see that actually.
Yeah, well, honestly, Blast actually did that in one of their competitive matches this season, where they came out of the payload tube. Yeah, they just like did the other. They can't move it, but this is the next best thing. But that said, we're now going to be getting into Floaters Unite versus Spastic Crabs on Dyson, which is our King of the Hill, or your hill, and then we'll take that hill, Matt, whichever you want to call it. So we're going to be seeing, composition-wise, again, very, very loadout from actually both teams. We're seeing a Pulsar and a Meteor as the weapon of choice, and we're seeing an additional long-range weapon from Spastic Crabs. So I would imagine
we're from one each.
Yeah, so we're phase shift. See that?
Right.
Phase shift from Spastic Crabs.
I like
on the Comet as well.
It's something you see, paired with Comet, very frequent. I still would like to see on the Nova too. Like a Nova player, because then you can go in super aggressive, and then if they focus you down too much, you just pop it, and you hope other people are gonna like finish them off.
I think that's the problem. I think Nova, you have to be close range, meaning it's much harder for you to disengage, and like the Comet, you can a lot of the time retreat to your team, but with the Nova, you're assuming that you're already with your team, and that at the moment, if you're in that situation, healing's just better, essentially. But that said, we're seeing a relatively kind of broken up fight here coming out from both teams. Lots of damage now coming out from Floaters, so it looks like Floaters will be able to successfully hold this, but as we have said, Spastic Crabs is running a much better long-range loadout, so they are doing damage and are actually going to take out Troc from range, which is good for them.
I can see that, like, if you had 4 pulsars here just spamming you from outside of the point when you have control of it, like, that can be so frustrating.
I feel like with healing, it's not going to be that bad. Because the problem is, why Meteor's chosen over that right now is because you get 2 Meteor shots and you're dead, even if you have healing on. Whereas if the Pulsar, it's basically just like draining you slowly. So in that scenario, as long as a teammate has heal, it's completely voided.
Right. Well, we do see Spastic Crabs with control. If you guys haven't seen King the Hill yet, if you have control and you die, you have a longer respawn than re-attacking back into it. So it's kind of important to realize who has control of the point when you make these fights happen. That's why we see teams in the beginning not actually capture the point, because they realize if we win the fight right after the back of them capping, we'll actually net more percent than they would have had anyways. But we see Floaters Unite able to turn the point back in their favor. They have all 4 players up as Spastic Crabs looking for another re-engagement here. Jonas hasn't been able to hit too many Comet shots so far, but then again, with the terrain they can hide behind, it's very difficult to do. So you can see him trying to take the shot on the player closest to him, who just hides behind the wall.
I think there's a bit of a problem here in that Spastic Crabs are trying to take the fight before Jonas has done damage, and then Jonas is it's essentially a 3v4 at that point, as it is now. So it becomes a very uphill battle for them. They are going to get an initial kill. Sorry, no, they're not actually going to lose a member initially, but they're going to take Batsuga out eventually. But this is kind of the problem if you're running Comet. Comet you need to use as your enabler, and basically you use it to enable taking someone out, and then you give yourself a man advantage. But the problem is, if you don't use it effectively, or you don't use it right, you're actually at a man disadvantage the entire fight.
Well, Floater's now going to be taking the lead here.
Because as you're seeing now, yeah, just Spastic Crabs seem to always have 1 man left alive at range and just not able to do or convert anything off of it. And Floaters now popping up to 65% versus 49%, and yeah, losing a member very quickly in that fight is not a good position for them to be in. Are going to convert and take a kill in response.
I'm really surprised to see that we're having like 2 pulsars, 1 on each team, actually. As you saw right there, I think it was with Dragoboss like pushing in. No, it wasn't him, it was Jog pushing in. He did just like no damage, and then he just got finished off like really quickly, because once you come in the range of like the Novas or the Meteors, there's no chance you're going to win that fight. I
don't know if you saw that one at the very end there as well. I think it was Jonas also trying to do damage, or no, I think it was actually Joe trying to do damage, or Jock. The player from Floaters escaping by the skin of his teeth. Now, if he had a Meteor and that was a single Meteor shot that hit, he'd be dead. That was the thing, because of splash damage, and it was a relatively easy shot because of the amount of surrounding environment, which is kind of why we're seeing the preference of Meteor over Pulsar. I do argue that you can replace the Nova with a Pulsar because it needs to do the same, but like the intention of its position in the team is to do the exact same job. It's that conversion tool for the very end.
Okay, so Spastic Crabs, I'm not going to contest.
Horde squad victory.
So I wanted to hear them a little bit more talking, but we got rudely interrupted by the round finishing, unfortunately. But yeah, Spastic Crabs had 4 people up, and no one even went for the points. I'm a little bit confused why they let that one go for free. However, Floaters Unite are now 1 round away from closing out the map and closing out the match and getting themselves through to play up against Blurst in a best-of-5 to potentially qualify over for the finals.
Yeah, I feel like this kind of comes into what we were talking about Floaters having a composition and kind of Spastic kind of just feeling it out, because they're running the Comet and they're kind of using that to some extent, but the rest of their play doesn't orient around it. Seemingly, it's just kind of a very staggered fighting style.
They're using the weapon, but they're not playing around what the weapon's meant to do.
Exactly. So they're using it, but they're not playing to their strength in that position.
Right.
And as a result, it's going like these fights are going very close, if not in the way of Floaters.
Well, we can see Floaters have lost on the initial fight, but then again, the initial fight doesn't really matter too much. Technically, you don't even really want to be the team that wins the initial fight because you want to let the other team capture. But here we go. They have the man advantage. Now the point is going to be unlocking. Maybe this opportunity is going to chase down to number 2. Jonas trying to run away. The phase shift is already used, and Jonas is going to be finished off. Actually, he's not using phase shift this time. He did switch over to, I believe that is the threat scanner.
Yep.
But, I mean, I think it's more helpful to his team to have that, but again, yeah, because he's never really being pushed. Like, the phase shift isn't really giving him too much.
Yeah, exactly. He wasn't being pushed. He was basically being left alive, and he was like, okay, cool, yeah, you just...
Well, that's the thing with the Comet, right, is that the Comet the threat of the Comet depends on how good of a player you are.
Exactly.
Because if you miss all your shots, it's like, all right, we have a 4v3 fight every time. If you're like one of the best players like Strambitsky with Hit It, then you really have to give attention to it. But I think that's where we're seeing Floaters Unite ignore it for the most part.
Yeah, because they don't need to. I mean, Jonas hasn't been hitting a lot of these shots, especially when he's been given the time as well. Like, they have been very stationary. They've been perfect targets, really, for Comet, and just hasn't been able to convert on them, unfortunately, which has basically just, unfortunately, misgrab there, so it does get brushed off by the shield. So, but yeah, Floater's now starting to get aggressive. I think that Floater's getting their confidence really. But as soon as I say that, they just run face first into Spastic, who just respawned.
That made no sense.
And comes straight back in.
You need to have a really good understanding of the respawn timers. You need to know when you can push for a quick kill to set them on even a longer delay for the next attack, or it can work out against you, as we just saw, unfortunately, for the Floaters there. But waiting for the respawns to come back through. They're going to come in from the south side, so a little bit of a pincer move coming in. Again, the Pulsar being used from range. You can see Swingly trying to hit a couple of meteor shots here as he retreats back. And there's actually going to be 2 players, or is it just 1 pushing up against the Floaters? I think it is 2, actually, and I don't know. It was just 1, sorry, but I don't know why Jonas was the one to do it. It cost him his life.
Yeah, and I feel like that was just very well played by Floaters there. Just like the split, and then like capitalizing on the fact that Spastic Crabs sent 1 person out to try and deal with that. So yeah, just generally well played from Floaters, I think, at the very in that fight there.
Well, let's see if things can change. Maybe their fates can, because it's all riding on this 31%, and Floaters Unite will be able to move forward. And Spastic Crabs, unfortunately, will be watching the finals from home. But they haven't been able to get the point. They are waiting for some respawns. Actually, is it 4-on-2?
Yeah, can you see? Yeah, actually.
Why are they not going?
A 3v2, actually.
Why are they not going then?
I think they've realized that they just need to really win this next fight. So they're just going to take their time with this and push on. However, Spastic Crabs, timing-wise, might actually be in a great position.
Here's the meteor.
And they will. Exactly. So that is a great...
Oh, wait. Look at what Spastic's using. 4 meteors.
Oh, they've switched over. Fantastic. Okay, so Spastic are now starting to respond to this. Great stuff. Good. Exactly what we wanted to see. Adaptation.
Adapting, yeah. This is what you need to have happen. This is...
And they're now taking the lead as well. This is looking good. Right, this fight decides whether or not Floaters have a chance to take this. Oh, they do not see a member sat up in the kind of the top part of that point, and they're going to get taken down very quickly in that fight. Lots of damage coming in. This can still go either way though with meteors, especially this many.
Get off the terrain. You can't sit on the terrain as much unless you're going to use it to like hop above high and low. Or those meteors are just going to take it on every time. It looks like the Floaters will take it. They have all 4 people left alive, and Spastic Crabs with 25% and counting. They have to get back on. They need to win this fight to keep their hopes alive.
But we know, like looking at how the Gravity Blast matches went, we know using meteors from this kind of open space into the point is very dangerous.
Yeah, but if you have time to work with, though, if you have time to hit those shots, and time is something they just do not have in their favor. However, the damage is looking good. Truck Doran's going to fall immediately as everyone else is being healed up as quick as they possibly can. But 1, 2, 3, the final punch is going to come in as Jonas falls, and Floaters Unite will get through to play up against Blurst here in a rematch.